So before we start, I just want to let you guys, like, show you guys an example GitHub repo. This is mine. This is mine. It's a simple notepad-like thing, and I've worked it on. I worked it on this like for almost 4 weeks, and yeah. So this was based on a simple uh, kind of library called WebView, and it's kind of an example how you will be working on some projects as well. See, in real world, most projects are not worked on by a single person. They are comprised of multiple people, and everyone does something different, and some are also involved in reviewing code. So GitHub and Git are two different things. I'll get into that later. The GitHub allows you to work on a project together with multiple people, and so that there is no clash anyways. So how GitHub comprises of the main project as well. You can post issues. Issues are the main way of telling the who's making the project that there's some kind of issue or bug, reporting bugs, and you can discuss on that how that happens. For example, I should have something to show you guys. This is an example of some issue that you can report, and then discuss how that issue came to be, something, how to recreate that issue. And GitHub allows you to reference a corresponding pull requests that are supposed to fix that thing as well. I'll explain this all in detail. Okay. So before we start, it's not necessary that you do everything along with me right now, but it's beneficial if you do, because you'll get a hand of how to use Git and GitHub like along with me. So Git and GitHub are two different things. Most people don't know, but Git is actually came way before GitHub, and it's actually the name of the command line. I will show you. It is actually now available as Git SCM. It was made by the same guy who made Linux, Linux Torvalds, by Linus Torvalds. He also made Git, and what GitHub is, it's like a server that works with Git. You don't necessarily have to use GitHub. You can use something like GitLab. GitLab is there, and there's also Bitbucket. There are multiple options that you can use. You can even use your own server with Git. What Git basically is basically a command line. It's a command line tool that allows you to maintain versions of your code. Not just code, actually. It's very useful even if you're like working on some Word project. Even you see, like, how Git works is when you initialize Git, it will store the current copy of your of your project as is, and as you keep on making changes to it and adding the changes via Git, it will store only the differences, not the entire project again. This allows you to look at what changes you have made at each step. At each step you added changes and saved it on Git. And this would allow you to really easily manage your code, go back in history, come back, allow others to add some more, and work those changes into your project as well. So to start, I'll assume that you have some ideas about basic commands. If not, I'll go through some of those command line commands. Very closely that Git, it is not necessary that you use Git via command line. You have the option to use something like a GUI tool, that is Github Desktop. The link I provided, desktop.github.com, all comes pre-installed with also installs Git on your system, and you can access it with PowerShell. A second. You can use it with PowerShell, you can use it with command prompt, you can use it with whatever you want. I'm using Windows Terminal, it's also made by Microsoft, it's just better to look at. So I'm currently on PowerShell, and if you see, my bad. This one. If you see, I have Git in this. You can invoke Git by using the Git command, and then you can pass separate arguments for it. I have Git installed, and while you're installing Github Desktop, this will automatically install Git on your device. If not, you can still use Git Bash. It will come. It will also be installed along with GitHub Desktop. GitHub Desktop is a GUI alternative for this. I'm assuming no comments. Okay. It's a like it visualizes what you do in Git via the command line. It will run the necessary commands to replicate what you're trying to do in GitHub Desktop. Other alternatives to GitHub Desktop are VS Code. Obviously, VS Code has an inbuilt source control. This thing has Git inside built in, and you see, not just Git, even Sublime Text. If you're using Sublime Text, it has also Git inbuilt, and GitHub's own Atom ID also has Git pre-inbuilt. If you're using Python, PyCharm, I believe, also has Git. So Git has been really necessary. Yeah. Some of you might have used MATLAB. MATLAB also has Git inbuilt. It's become that important in the modern day development environment. One really neat tool is Ungit. Actually, Ungit will actually visualize your GitHub repo as a tree. So I'll explain more on that. What Git does is, let's say at some point of time you made your GitHub repo here. This was the point you made your first, like, initialized your GitHub repo, and then you added changes. The tree will then grow with every change you make, and this is how it obviously what a tree looks like. But let's say you branched out from this position to another branch. This was the master branch. I'll explain to you what branches are. So actually in Git, your development can go very complex. So what the standard procedure of implementing new features in some project is, usually you break out to a feature branch that is solely made for implementing that feature. Let's say you're building a notepad, but then you wanted to implement a feature that allowed you to change preferences, let's say. So I want this feature. So I'll actually branch out from my current state to another branch. Let's call it preference branch. And then I'll implement those changes here. And let's say someone else was implementing some other feature and actually merge it back to master. So once I'm done with the preferences branch, I can merge it back to the main branch. That's why how GitHub's history, or Git history, looks like a tree. It consists of multiple commits. Commits is basically a cell that contains all the changes you made from the previous state of the project. So each comment would have a really big ID. I'll give you an example. Let's say on this thing, it has a lot of commits, and each commit has its own ID. An ID can be used to refer to a specific commit in a repo, and you can even go back to that specific commit by using the same ID. I'll show you exactly how. So to begin, before we begin, actually, yeah, it's really important that I show you. See, GitHub is really not just GitHub. Git is really important in the professional work life. Here's a Microsoft organization, and they have been developing a lot of tools for us. Okay, there should be one for Windows Terminal. That's a really good example. And you can see that they've been working on this. They have more than 1,500 commits and more than 1,000 issues right now. Each issue has a label regarding what kind of issue that is and when, where, and how it's being working on. Each has some priorities, and if it's user interface or area output related. So these things can go very complex. Each issue has a standard format in the professional life. Like they'll implement templates for this, like what your workload was, what you did, what you expected, and what actually happened to explain the issue. And somebody might try to solve this in a PR. A PR or a pull request is, let's say, this repo belongs to me, and you want to add something to my repo. Repo is repository, and you want to add something to my repository, some feature, or let's say just some minor thing. What you will do, you will create a copy of my repository using the fork button. The fork button will create a copy of this thing, a copy of the repo into your GitHub profile. It will show that it was forked from the original terminal. And now, once you have made your changes, you can push those changes back to the main branch that was owned by main repository that was owned by me. This is what we call a pull request. You can see that the same symbol is used, that their branch was merged with our branch. And you can see even each pull request has their own labeling. And people actually in the professional world, when you do pass a PR, request a PR, people will review your code if it is actually mergeable. And code reviewing is really important step, because we don't want any fatal features being implemented, and that will cause a lot of bugs. So it's usually a senior member's problem to look at code and reviewing code inside an organization, a company like Microsoft. And not just Microsoft, actually, even Google and Adobe are now on GitHub. Google is now actually implementing, there's a language called Rust. Rust is an up and coming language, and they are implementing a cross connectivity between C++ and Rust. So I won't explain what Rust is, but yeah, Rust is now really getting some traction. So my point is, like, GitHub is a really important skill to have. Not just because nowadays companies are using it, but it will really help you build your own project. Let it be just some graphic design work that you are working on. And I know undoing like 10 to 20 times can be tedious, but it just saves you a lot of trouble using some version control. Some people just like save multiple versions, like version 1, version 2, like this was the final image, whatever. GitHub will just Git will allow you to prevent that. Okay, so I'll now get into using Git. Before using Git, I have provided the link to downloading GitHub. It is available for almost all platforms right now, even Arch Linux. So all you need to do is click on the specific button for your OS on desktop.github.com. It will download the GitHub Desktop application along with the Git CLI. The Git CLI consists of the Git command for your terminal or the Git bash. So to proceed, I'll tell you about some really important terminal commands called makedir. Makedir is to create a directory. I'll create an introduction directory. Okay, I need to remove. Okay, I'll create a new one. Never mind. I'll create a new one and I'll cd is change directory. I'll move into that directory. Now a really cool. Now in Bash, they will have a simple command to create new files called touch, but unfortunately, it's not available in Windows platforms. So instead of using touch, all you can do is echo a blank string to whatever file you want. This will create a new file .txt which contains an empty string. You don't need to understand how this works, but just know that this works. You can list all files in the current directory using ls. ls will show you every file that is in the current directory. You can see that I recently just made new file.txt, so it just shows up here. Now, I can also show you that the file is empty using more. More is used to usually view the contents of the provided file. Now, to get started with Git, there are two ways. You either initialize a local repository or create a copy of something you found online. So if you want to work with some online repository, you'll use git clone followed by the URL, and space if you want to create a subfolder for that. But currently we are just initializing a local repo, and we'll use Git Init for that. What Git Init does, it creates a local repository in the folder you provide the name for. If I use dot, it will indicate that I want to create a repository, Git local repository in the current directory. Dot is for current directory, and if I pass a name, let's say introduction now, it will create a new folder called introduction and initialize a repo in that. But since I already made a folder myself, I'll use git init dot to create the repository here. And you can see nothing changed because an invisible folder is created here. I'll show you in Linux how it looks like. You see .git folder was created. This will store all your changes. All your changes and everything related to Git will be stored inside the .git folder. It's .git because it's meant to be hidden and it's not meant to be tampered with. And tampering with that will break whatever the entire Git repo. Now you see, by automatically my command line will show me that I'm on the master branch. Master branch is by the default main branch that you will be working with in any repository. Now, if I want to create a new branch, I could branch away from master at the current stage and create a new branch with my own name. Currently, I'll just work with master and I'll go into branching later. Now, I have this repository called introduction under the TechClub NITD domain. And I'll show you how to work with GitHub inside Git. Now, GitHub will tell you that since there's nothing inside this repo, I can do a few things. I can create a new repository using the command line by creating a normal file, initializing the repo, adding the new added file, committing it to the repository, and then pushing it to this remote URL. I'll explain what this does first. Okay, so so what Git does is Git is the local repo that runs on your computer. This is your computer, and then there's a server. Let's say currently it's just GitHub. So Git runs on your computer and GitHub runs on some server. What remote is, I'm saying that the project stored in your computer can be remotely saved in some server. Okay, so by using the remote, I'm referencing the server address where I can store my local repository in some cloud. So I'll reference this by linking this with an ID. By default, it's a general practice to use origin, but you can use anything. In this example, they use the name origin and this provided link for the introduction ID. You can see this matches the exactly this with the .git protocol. What's important is GitHub has now defaulting to .git protocol if you're mentioning it in the command line. So you don't need to actually use .git, but it's general practice that you do add the .git at the end, this thing. Because let's say you're not working with GitHub and you're working with your own server, this will help it tell that yeah, you're using the Git protocol and not the not like an HTTP protocol. So what it's doing, it's telling that the local Git repo to consider this link as a remote ID for this project with the name origin. Now, so whenever I reference origin, I'll mean that yeah, I'm referencing this link against Git. So to do that, I'll just do exactly that. I'll git remote add origin and I'll add the link. Now you can see that there are untracked files when I type git status. There are two ways to check current status of Git using git status and git diff. Git differences will tell you from the last commit what changed exactly. What changed exactly, like what lines you added, what lines you removed, and all of that. And git status will tell you like there are untracked files, there are tracked files, and there are some changes that you have made on the current current branch that you're in. Now you see, since I haven't added this new file.txt to the repo, so Git does not know that it has to track changes to this file. So to do that, I'll have to add this file to the repo using the git add command. Okay, each time you make a change, you'll have to use git add. Okay, so by default, if you type git add dot, everything mentioned in the git status will automatically be added to the current commit you're going to do. So to finalize that, I have to push this file to the repository. What I am going to do is use commit. Now commit requires you to have a message, a small descriptive message that let's say added new file. Okay, it will tell me that yes, it added the new file correctly. And now if you see, there are no lingering changes. The working tree is clean, that there are no different changes that are necessary to be added to the repository. Now I can push it from the command line to the repository online. Okay, so to do that, I have to use git push, but I also need to tell where I need to push. If you remember, I added the origin remote for this thing. I'll tell you how different remotes work when I get to cloning this repository. But if you can see, I'm using git push origin. Now I need to also specify the branch I need to push in. So the branch that I need to push is my current master branch, and this will tell it that yeah, I need to push the master branch to the origin remote address. But the thing is, I've never pushed anything on the master branch to the URL. The first time I do it, I need to use the upstream flag. That I'm trying to set that the current branch will always push to this remote address only. So that's why I need to use the -u, which is the upstream tag as upstream attribute. Now when I press enter, this will push the new file.txt to the remote address. Now since it's successfully pushed, if I reload this page, I'll see that my new file.txt is now here. Okay. Now you might argue that you can use the add file command here, create new file, upload files, but that's not the correct way of doing it, and it makes you look very unprofessional. Besides, you can use git anywhere. Like if you're on later on, if you're working with cloud computers, that you have to SSH into those computers. So SSH will only give you access to the command line, so you will have to use Git only over there. So it's really important that you know Git, although there are alternatives to get around that. Okay. So I'll create look. This is how you do it. I have no idea. Okay, so you can see that I added the new file here. This is how you'll use the GitHub GUI. Almost professionally, you'll never see the use of this if you're using some code editor, and this will show you the changes in source control. I'll open the respective folder here as well. So instead of using Git, you can even use VS Code, source control, or GitHub Desktop. It's up to you, but I suggest you stick to the command line. Now, since you have pushed your changes, I'll show you what it looks like if I make a change to the file. So let's say I add a new text, hello world. Okay, and I save it. Now immediately source control will tell me that I have made changes to this file, and it will mark this as modified, and it will give me three options. I can either open the file and see what changes were made. Okay, what changes were made? It will tell me that I changed this line to this thing by adding this thing. That's why there are minus and pluses here. Now I can discard the changes to make it go back to this form, or I can stage this change. Staging the change is exactly doing git add and that file name. If I use git status, it will tell you that I modified the new file.txt, and if I use git diff, it will tell me that I added the hello world line. Now if I use git add new file.txt and refresh here, it will say that I staged this change automatically. Now VS Code will allow me to commit this directly from here by inserting a message from here that I made some change here, and I can press Control Enter to commit this file, or the other way around. The alternative for this is git commit m made some changes, and I can commit the file here. Now immediately the state changes would go, because what VS Code was trying to do, I automatically did via the command line. I can now push the changes back to origin master. Now I'll have to keep on referring origin master because that's where I wanted to push. But now I don't need to mention the upstream attribute again, because Git now knows origin master means the current, the local master branch. Now if you're using some other branch, it will push that branch only, which is like checking out to that branch and uploading changes on that branch only. You cannot commit current changes to another branch. That's not how it's works. You have to go to that branch and then commit. So to create a new branch, let's say I wanted to implement a new feature where I go through hello world with someone's name. What I would do is to create a branch. Now, if the branch does not exist, I have to provide the -b. This is to specify that if the branch does not exist, I need to create it. So I'll call the new branch this new branch, and immediately Git has switched me to the new branch because I use the checkout command. Now if I refresh, this will mention new branch now, and I think even Github Desktop will show the new branch. It will also show me that I made some changes as well. Now I'm currently in a separate branch right now. This is my master branch. This was my initial commit where I initial commit. Then I added the new file.txt. Then I added the hello world line. Now I branched off to another branch called new. This branch is new, and this branch was a master. So master has still a lifeline over this. Master can still receive changes, and new can also receive changes. I'll demonstrate that to you. I'm currently in the new branch, and I added this change. I'll commit it from here only. And now I have pushed changes to the new branch, and I haven't changed anything on the master branch. Now I can go back to the master branch by using git checkout master. Master was the branch name, and I'm going to the master branch. If I provide a -b attribute here, it will show me an error that master branch already exists and it cannot create the branch. So if I do not specify master, I can go to master branch again, and if I refresh, my changes are gone. Okay, because those changes were present in this new branch where I added the name. I added my name here, but Git knows that master branch is here and it does not have the name change. Now you see that the repository, for some reason it's not loading properly. Okay, I'll open it up. Okay. So it still says that I only have one branch here, and that branch is the master branch. Okay, because I'm on the branch master. It does not know that I have the new branch created because the new branch only exists locally. Okay, so even now I also need to push this new branch to the master branch. What I will do is go back to the new branch and then do the same thing. Set the upstream URL that I want to push to origin, and the branch name is new branch. Okay. Now let's wait for it to finish. Now I have some extensions installed that will automatically tell me if the changes were made, but I'll show you here. Once I reload, it will tell me that I have two branches now, master branch and the new branch. My current file has the only hello world because I'm on the master branch, but if I go to new branch and look at the file, I'll see the my name is brain line as well. Now this is important because I was implementing my name feature inside the new branch. Now, but let's say I decided to add some feature in the master branch itself. So now instead of hello world exclamation mark, I don't want the exclamation mark. I just want again and then the exclamation mark. So this was the change I made in master, and I'll add the file. I'll show you that it is showing me the changes. I'll add all of the changes and then commit. Oh, I use capital letter. Okay, so I have committed, and now master branch has an again commit. Okay, so now you can see that there is a problem now, that if I want to merge it back here, this will show me that the end result should be hello world again and then my name line. Okay, I'll show you the merge here before I need to push. I'm still on the new branch, so no change was made here, but now master branch has a change. Okay, so now there are two really important concepts in GitHub or Git, that is rebasing and merging. Okay, Now, if I'm adding a branch back to the master, this arrow, this going this way, is merging, because I'm merging something that branched off from it earlier back to itself. Okay, but if I go the other way, okay, one second. Okay, now I was here with the again. What? No, no, wait. Now, since this new branch was based off this the status of master branch at this commit, what I want to have is like what it should look like is instead of having this thing, it should be this thing. That my new branch should be now based off of this commit, and then later on, if I decide to merge, I can merge. Okay. So that is what rebasing allows. What Git would now do is go back to this state, okay, create a commit based on AG now, and whatever changes you made, it will apply on the new branched off commit that was formed. So to demonstrate that, originally this was like this. What Git would do is like remove this, like just store this history somewhere, forget about this forget about this commit. It will create a new branch from AG, name it the branch you're working with, and then add the changes we made on top of this thing. Now once I run the rebase command, you'll see that exactly done as is. I'll go to the new branch. I'll clear my command line and see git status that nothing has changed here. Now, if I check new file, it looks like this. Now, what I'll do, I'll rebase. Now, this an important concept in rebase and merging, that is conflict handling. Okay. Before I rebase, I'll handle conflicts. I'll tell you what conflicts are. So let's say someone decided that it was really important that instead of using nicknames, we were going to use full names. Okay, and someone else committed that to the main branch. And now when you're merging nicknames, that will cause problems because the master branch says my name is Rishikesh Anand and your branch says my name is Blaine. That will cause problems, and Git will tell you to merge the conflicts, like to resolve the conflicts. That what do you want? Do you want my name is Rishikesh Anand, or do you want my name is Blaine? Okay, or do you want both? It will show up as Rishikesh Anand Blaine as a single text, and then you can change what on your desire and then merge. So rebasing is important because this is a simple example, but let's say someone else adds a function to your code, and then you add a function below it. Okay. Now both the commits change the same thing, but you're now trying to merge those. Okay. So Git does not know. Git is a program. It won't know what you're trying to do, and it will ask you to resolve the merge yourself. Since the functions are conflicting, it will tell you to look at what is conflicting, and it will give you two options. You can either take the changes from one commit, take the changes from the other commit, or add both the changes, or take neither, whatever you want. So, okay, there are, if you can see, I'm using git rebase origin /master. Why slash? Okay. When I was using push, I wasn't mentioning the slash anyways. So that's because push and pull won't take a direct branch address. Okay, this will work without origin as well. Without origin, it will mean that I'm referencing the local master repository, the local master branch, and not the remote master branch. That works. But since you can have multiple remote addresses in a single Git repository, you can have another remote and rebase off of that. So that's why you use the slash one, because master branch locally can have different things if it's not in sync with the online master branch, because you didn't push. So I'll use master right now. I think the rebase should work properly. Okay, now it told me that it had a merge conflict. Okay, now VS Code will show me that merge conflict. Like this was hello world again without the line. My name is Blaine, but so I have two options. I can just keep the hello world Blaine line, or I can keep those two lines, or I can keep both changes. So what I'll do, since I want this line and this line, what I'll do is accept both changes and remove this line. Save the file and stage the file, which is get add new file.txt. And now, with if you look at the information, it only asks you to stage the file, not commit. So what you need to do now is just follow the git rebase continue. Okay. Now Git will actually help you along the way on what you're trying to do, and it's really an edge case where you are cornered into doing something you didn't want to do. And having a remote location is like having a backup stored somewhere that in case you mess up, you can go back there. Okay. I'll show you some ways to revert back to previous states of the code. But before I need to complete the rebase. Okay. So I'm still on the new branch, but the new branch will see my hello world again line and my name is Blaine. I need to push these changes to the remote address as well. Keep a note that I'm trying to push new branch and not master. Okay. So now, since I'm only merged locally and not did not use origin/master, that's why this is showing me that. Now I can use Git Pull origin new branch, and now it will tell me that yeah. Okay, never mind. That was the wrong error. Okay. Now it will tell me about the merge conflict again. Now this is what happens if you don't use the origin/master. That's why you need to mention the remote address. Now in case of pull conflicts, that auto merging conflict failed, I need to commit this new change. Right. Okay. Okay, so now remotely, it should have the hello world again with the my name is Blaine thing. Okay. So that's how you work with GitHub, but that's the only the gist of it. If you're working with everything locally in a single remote address, but what if you want to contribute code? Before we move on to contributing code, there's one concept I need to tell you, which is the Git Pull. Git Pull will fetch changes from the address you specify to your local branch. So if I git pull origin master, it will pull the changes master to my master branch only, not new branch. It won't change new branch. So my master branch did not have the Blaine line, I believe. Okay. So nothing was changed. If you see, every file is as is, but my master branch will be updated with the remote address. There's also git fetch, which will allow you to fetch the latest version of the current latest version of any branch you want from the remote address you specify. If you git fetch all, it will fetch everything. Not ALL, you can just use -. It will fetch every branch that exists on the remote address, every remote address, and fetch it locally. Okay, and it will exist as git checkout origin master. Okay. Now, before okay, so the thing I wanted to tell you about, very important, was git reset. Okay, so let's say I decided, yeah, I went off my boat and like added some more things. Now git tells me that, yeah, I have these changes. I have these changes, and I didn't want them anymore. So I can just git reset head to get rid of the changes. By default, reset would do a soft reset. What soft reset does is, like, let's say you added the changes here and committed them. A soft reset would unwind those commits to wherever you want to go, and but not change the file, but only change the git history. Okay. To show this, I'll commit the current change. I'll have to add, right? Git add and git commit -n test change. Okay. I have made this changes to and added them to Git. Now I want to go back. Okay. Now if you see, my current file status is this thing, and I don't want it like this. I want to go back. Okay. To go back, what I'll use is git reset head. Head is the current position of my Git repository. So now I want to go one commit back. To go one commit back, I'll use this curly line. I don't know what it's called. It's the key above tab. I'll use this and one. One means I need to go one commit back. If I wanted to go 2 commits back, 3 commits back, I'll use 2, 3, 4. Okay. Now I'll go one commit back. So by default, this is a soft reset. The other reset is hard, and I'll tell you what the difference is. Okay? If I do the soft one, you see, my resultant file is as is, but the changes are now present. Okay. Now git refers to the previous state of the file, but the changes are still present as is. Okay. So if I go to reflog, and it can see that, yeah, I moved ahead before. Okay. I'll discard these changes so that my file is as is. I'll add one more change to demonstrate how this works, hard works, and I'll commit this change. Now, since you have worked with C, you might be aware of what pointers are. Pointers are references to memory locations. Git also works in kind of the same sense, but it uses references. Okay, each reference has an ID, so that's why we have a reference log, and each reference has a commit ID. Now, okay, if I just wanted to revert that git reset, what I could have done is use this head @1, which is this ID, and used git reset head @1, and I could go back. Okay, not now, obviously reflog has changed. I can look at it is now head @2. Okay, so you see my current changes are like this. I guess my current changes are this. Now, if I want to go back to the before I resetted everything, I can do this. Did I make a spelling mistake? Wait. Okay, I'll figure out later. Okay, I'll just show you what hard does. Okay, what hard will do. Okay, what hard will do, it will not stage those changes again. Okay, So the file will automatically revert back to how it was. Okay. And now let's say you have made the mistake of pushing those changes to the remote repository, but now you don't want those changes even in the remote repository. So I'll demonstrate that again. I'll commit this and I'll even push this change. Now once I push these changes, let it complete. Once I push this change, I'm sorry I'm taking too long. I'll finish up really quick. Okay, I'm on the master branch. Okay, so see, I push this changes, but I don't want the changes live either. So what Git Reset would do is it will only change it locally. And even if I reset here, my local file will look like I want it to, but the remote file won't. Okay. So what you have to do is push forcefully. Okay, that you want Git to overwrite the current head of your remote address and use the current head that you have locally. And that to do that, you'll have to use the force. It's either double hyphen force or single hyphen f. Single hyphen f is like the single character attribute, and double hyphen is for words. Okay. Now it tell me force updated and my changes should appear as is. Okay. Now it reverted back. So the final thing I want to show you before I go into commits and PRs and issues and shit. I'll show you that you can merge back changes now. I can get checkout to this thing. Master. Okay, one really important thing I forgot to mention is, let's say there was an option to rebase the new branch with this ID instead from this. But what if I merged master to new instead of new to master? What if I merge master to new? So what merge will do now, it will take all these changes here and will put them here as like AG. So when you merge, only this will merge back here and the AG change would appear as is. Okay, and this can go more complex because before I clear, because I branched off here. Okay, I added some changes here. I merged it back here because this also had this thing and this thing are the same. And then I made more changes here and more changes here. So then it will go like this and then merge back here, and it will grow really complex. So it's really advised that you rebase instead of merge. Okay. So now I'll merge. What was it? New branch. Okay. Merge new branch to master. Okay. And now I will push this to master. You see, no file was uploaded because Git even remotely has those commits as well. So all it needs to do is reference the same thing. So it does it automatically, and it does not need to upload anything extra. So that's the basic use of Git and GitHub if you're working locally. But let's say you don't have access to this repository. I have, but you won't. Okay, so this is also a small task for you guys as a takeaway from this workshop. What you need to do is fork this repository. Okay. What this would do is create a copy of that branch into your own GitHub profile. Okay. Now, since you always have access to any repository in your account, you can make changes to this thing. Okay. I'll copy this link here, and I'll go up a folder, and I'll delete this thing. Okay. No. I'll delete this thing, and I'll now use the clone command now to a folder called introduction. I can use introduction to, or I can even clone to the current folder using the dot. But Git requires the folder you're cloning into to be empty. So that will give you an error because my current folder is not empty. Okay. Now, this is my own copy, and I'm pretty sure by default, origin. Okay, I did not see it. By default, if you clone this way, GitHub would automatically assign origin to the address you clone. So currently, origin refers to this and not this one. Okay. So what if I wanted to track changes from this repository as well? Because let's say in the main repository, someone makes a change that is not available in your fork. So what you will do is add another remote. By default, the naming convention for the source of the fork is upstream. Okay. You don't have to use origin or upstream. Okay. Is this how people use Git? And if you go around looking for some trouble you were having with Git on Stack Overflow, let's say, the default naming convention would be origin and upstream. So you will understand why what is happening if you just stick to origin and upstream, but you don't have to. Okay. So now I can push changes to, like, I'm on the master branch, I'll push changes to my local file. What change I'll do is I'll just delete this file. I'll create introduction / names.md. Okay. And I'll just add my own name. Okay. So when you create a fork of this repo, just add your own name at the bottom of this as a learning example. And now, if I use get status, I'll see that I removed a lot of things, and I added a file itself. So I'll use git add dot to add everything I did. Now you see origin was already set up, so I don't need to use the -u. But if I create a new branch, I create a new remote address, I'll have to use the upstream tag. Okay. Do keep in mind that GitHub will, there's one really important thing I missed. While you're using GitHub or a GitHub Desktop or Git, it will ask you to actually log in as well. Okay, so you have to provide your email ID that you use with Git and your password, of course. A GitHub Desktop will allow you to log in inside this thing, and Git will ask you for the password normally. But let's say you have something like two-factor authentication, which sends you some code, OTP, and to log in. That will, for that, you'll need to generate an API key, and just message me if you want to know how. I won't go into that detail. But yeah. So if you see, There is no change in the TechClub NITD daily domain, but if I refresh this page, you'll see that my folder is there and my file is there. Okay. So this is critically important because the changes only exist in my copy. Okay. It only exists my copy in the code, and it will say that this commit is this branch is one commit ahead of the original, the repository I forked from. So if I want to push my changes back, I'll have to create a pull request. You can only do this in the browser, by the way. So just so you know. So I want to push my master branch here to the master branch in the TechClub repository. Okay. So it will show what changes I made. I can create a pull request, and I can describe what I changed. I added an introductions folder and added my name. Now under this thing, under the TechClub repository, this PR would show up, like, and it will show every changes I made, and every commit I made. And now you can just merge the pull like, as the owner of this thing, I have access to this thing. I can merge PR requests, but you cannot. Okay, this will be done by whoever is handling the repository. And since I see that no conflicts were made, I can just merge. I can even squash and merge. Squash and merge will squash all commits there are. Currently, there's only one commit, so there's no need to worry. But if there are 5 to 10 commits, I can merge all those commits into one and then merge. And rebase and merge is basically I can rebase the head of this PR, basically using the git rebase command on this branch. Now I can just merge pull requests, confirm merge. I could have even gone to this thing and commented on something like nice name, and I can finish review. This is what an owner would do, and this is just good standard behavior that you should adopt. Okay. Now, since this PR was merged, the source repository looks like this. So what I need you to do is do the same thing. Fork this repository, add your own name inside names.md, create a pull request, and I'll merge it. Okay. One final note is, like, you can create issues, of course, regarding a PR. How to add names started with #1. Okay, so #1 will automatically refer. If you click on #1, it will show you that this PR was the one I was referencing. Okay, so I'm quickly finishing up. You have another workshop now. Before I finish, I actually have to push something. Okay. So I have this Python tutorial GitHub repository that I need to show. I'll just git clone it. Oh, I added space more. You're required to download these two files for your Python tutorial if you are attending that. Once you start using this, you'll get a hang of all of these commands really quickly. You can find really small articles that list all of these commands as well, but I'll post a write-up later on. And this repository should have the files that you need for the Python tutorial. Or does it? No. I did I push or not? Oh, no. Okay, so these two files are what you need for the Python tutorial. I will go back and revert that commit because I accidentally committed this folder there. So one final note, like some important things you might need to know about is GitHub has a student pack that allows you to have some really cool benefits on some really cool stuff. Like you can have a domain for money at .com.me. I don't know. It's really up to you. You can have a remote server for like with $100 limit with on AWS and Azure. You can get all JetBrains IDs, PyCharm, IntelliJ for free for until you're a student, and all of this is accessible through your college ID. So go sign up for this. It's really cool. Uh, this is an example issue where because they have a certain way of writing, and Markdown has a certain format of writing, so you can use that. One more thing. In this October, actually, there's Hacktoberfest, so I don't know the rules of this at this time, but usually last year it was like 3 PRs that you need to make to open source repositories to get a shirt. Like, and this is a really cool thing that you should take part in. It will come in October soon, so check it out. And yeah, I guess that's it. I don't have anything else. So if anybody has any issues, they could let me know. Okay. But why? I already pushed already, so please. So if you have any issues, you can tell me, and I'll resolve those for you.